Okay, part 4 of working with layers and Mr. Specklehead here. We're going to add a little bit more depth to this, and then we are going to colorize part of it. So in order to do that, we're going to have to add some shadowing. There are a couple of ways we could do this. We could go back to this layer. We could go to the layer styles and add a drop shadow. Move the dialog box out of the way so you can see the drop shadow, and I can bring that down like this if that's the way I want to do it, and that actually works pretty nicely. I can make that a softer edge drop shadow by increasing the size, and I can make it even a little bit bigger by using the spread if I want, but I kind of like that right there, and click OK. So that's one way of doing it. I'm going to turn that off, and I'm going to add a layer underneath this. Oops, sorry. There we are. Yep, right there. And it's a great idea to name your layers. So we have, this is all I'm just double clicking on that and adding the eye, and I'm going to actually say this is the left eye. I always name left and right as I'm seeing it, not from the subject's point of view. It just helps me to do it that way. Just whatever you decide to do, do it consistently. So, okay, and then this is the face. Okay, cool. All right, so we have that drop shadow. This one is the shadow that I haven't put anything on yet. I'm going to come in here and use the black brush. I'm going to set this at 40% roughly, and this way I can draw a drop shadow just where I want it, and it would be a little bit deeper at the edges, a little bit less in the middle, to give it a more spherical look. And I don't have to worry about being too dark here, because I can come over to opacity and drop the opacity down to whatever I want it to be. And that looks about right. And that gives me a little extra dimension there. Okay? I think we need to have some color in those lips, so I'm going to add a new layer above this. There's a couple of ways to do this too, as in everything Photoshop. I'm going to sample his skin color, what technically would be his skin color, and I'm going to go a little bit pinker, a little bit redder, and maybe just a little bit less saturated, and come in here and paint where the lips would be. And again, I'm just doing it on a regular layer at this point, but I am going to change that blend mode of that layer to color so that I don't lose the brights and the darks in there. Okay? So there we go. And if I don't like that color and I want to change it back to any other color, I don't have to redefine the shape. I've got the shape okay, or maybe I don't. Maybe I want to fill in up here a bit. Okay. And just do a little bit more down here. Now that I've got the shape, lock the transparent pixels. This means I can't put anything on the layer that doesn't already have pixels on it. So I can come in here and pick a different color, maybe less saturated, a little darker, Option Delete, and just fill that. And I can keep redoing that until I get the exact color that I want. Maybe I want it just a little more in the orangey range here, and just a wee bit more saturated, and maybe still just a little more saturated. And again, I can drop the opacity on this, and I like that. That looks to me about exactly the way it should look. Okay, so now I might want to put some sort of interesting texture over some part of this. If I were to do that, I could use a clipping group. So I could come in here and use the face as the base of a clipping group. If I have the lips the way I like them, I can also and I applied that layer mask, which means that's a permanent feature of this now. I don't want to change that, as I merge those two layers together to make the lip color permanent on the face. So now I no longer have a layer mask on there. Not to worry, we can copy anything from one side of the face to the other. The exception would be if my lighting were not straight up and down. I would have to change the position of the catch light here. So, and the position of the shadow. So you have to think about what your lighting is doing the whole time. Okay, so we now have lips on our creature. We have an eye that looks like a realistic eye. We have some shape. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to add some wrinkles to him. We did this with a little bit of bulge here, but we can also use the burn and dodge tool. So I'm at 80% on this. I'm going to drop it down to about 60 and see what happens. I want to bring out a little bit of a bulge below the eye. I might want to go to 90 here. And then make that really bulge, really seem like it's three-dimensional by adding a shadow underneath it. Okay, so I'm going to come down here and look at what that does. Okay, so if I want to add a little bit of dimension on top of the eye, and then add a little shadow there. See how we're adding dimension here? So just by burning and dodging, we've added a serious amount of dimension around that eye. If I want the chin to have a little more oomph, come forward a bit. When you lighten something, it comes forward in our perception. If you darken something, I'm dropping back on the opacity on that, it recedes. So that's why when we darken the edges of this, it recedes a bit. It goes away from the viewer. Okay, so I'm going to come in here and do that. Okay, now I'm going to stop there for this portion after I copy and paste the whole thing. So once again, I'm going to turn off everything that is in the background and just copy the things that are inclusive of the face. So Command Option Shift or Control Alt Shift plus the letter E gives me a copy of merged of all the layers I see. Now I can turn that background layer on. Now I'm going to turn off the face. That goes into my insurance pocket. Am I here? Oops, all three of those do. Insurance folder here. I'm going to copy that. Oops. I'm going to not copy it twice yet because I want to make a selection first. I'm bouncing around in the layers panel. I'm going to make a rectangular selection of this, copy that twice, and then I can throw that away because that's an extra copy, and put that in the insurance folder, and transform by flipping this on that central axis by moving the central point over, and it looks like I might be just a little wide, but I can nudge that over with the move tool, and suddenly we have two eyes and a very expressive face. Okay, that's all for this part of layers. Hope you enjoyed it.